afternoon, everyone. I'm Asma Habeeb from Petroleum Development Oman, and I'm going to present to you today OSINT and cyber threat intelligence. So in the world of cybersecurity, OSINT is basically open source intelligence. I know we've seen so many presentations today about how you can do threat intelligence with various solutions. What I want to tell you today is that you can do this by yourselves, whether or not you're a cybersecurity individual or not, through freely available tools on Google. So by a show of hands, how many cybersecurity professionals do I have here? Great. So what I want to tell you today is that cybersecurity is not only for cybersecurity professionals. And that is what we want to inculcate in all of you, that everyone needs to be intelligent to provide mitigation measures for your organization and to safeguard your organization. We're going to go through the threat intelligence process, the life cycle, the latest cyber attacks, and then we're going to look at how we're going to do threat hunting. Finally, we will look at open source threat intelligence, which is known as OSINT. So often, when we are not part of cybersecurity, we think these cyber attacks, they just happen by a person who's writing lines and lines of codes, and we need these special solutions. We need to invest in special solutions. I'm here to tell you that each one of you ethically can find vulnerabilities for your respective organizations, compiling to the laws of the country to safeguard your organizations. We're going to look at it today that it's not a person that you need to pay for. It's not these attackers that are having tons of money to pay for. There are always two sides to the coin, right? When an attacker uses these measures, he's using these vulnerabilities against your organization to attack your organization. So why not we, as those individuals, use these applications and these open source applications that are readily available and safeguard our organizations by flagging those vulnerabilities as part of offensive security in our organization and give those vulnerabilities so that the defensive security can safeguard us. So what is threat intelligence and what are its benefits? Basically, it's about being proactive before an attack happens, before the attacker comes to your organization. And how do you do this? Look at various vulnerabilities in your organization. What is happening? You collaborate with different sectors, with different similar countries. So when you see an attack that has already happened in history, it's not just for us to, talk about, to chant about, oh, this much millions were lost. This is where our job comes in. We need to stand up. We need to see how we can safeguard our organization, our country, from this attack attacking us, from it happening to our organization. So, sharing the right information with the right individuals. Do not just limit it to cybersecurity team. We need to tell our entire organization, this has happened. What are we going to do about this? Awareness is really important in regards to cybersecurity. So let's talk about the threat intelligence life cycle. How do we do this entire process that we're talking about? It sounds pretty complicated, doesn't it? But there are certain steps that you need to follow to do the threat intelligence in your respective organizations. First and foremost, remember that we are defenders, and we are doing this ethically, no matter what is available on the internet, no matter what is available on the surface web, or the deep web, or dark web. Our first duty is to comply to the laws of our country. So we start with the planning and direction. We discuss what is happening worldwide. How are we going to tackle this? What are the losses that the world is occurring due to attacks, cyber attacks. Then we look at different points of control where we can collect this data. So you have indicators of compromise that you can take and push it to your security controls. Every organization should have a layer of security controls. It does not just stop at one layer. You need to have a layer of firewalls. You need to have a layer of proxies. When you have your data, it goes for processing. This is when you're processing your data and you're analyzing. Is this really a threat to your organization? What are the false positives? We cannot be in this situation to have overloading our controls. We don't just want to put any sort of data. We have to refine that data. Dissemination and feedback. Collaborate. Help your country. Don't just stick to your organization. Help your sectors. For example, we as PDO are an oil and gas sector. We do take initiatives to collaborate with our country governmental organizations, to collaborate with different oil and gas sectors, to collaborate with our neighboring countries. It's really important to know that what is happening worldwide and be proactive that this attack doesn't happen to us, even if it's happened somewhere, that we can help each other. So who are the audience for cyber threat intelligence? You have your cybersecurity team. You'll have your board members. You'll have your incident response team. Let's say an attack has already happened in your organization. What are you going to do? Are you going to sit and cry and crib about it? Or you have to take detective measures now? Your preventive measures did not work, but now you are already aware something has happened. You're going to tell your security monitoring team, keep monitoring traffic from whatever the indicators of compromise the attackers have used. Raise incidents, communicate this to the management, get support from the management, convey to the management how important it is and how much loss the company has incurred and how much you need to protect your company and your organization. Inculcate this knowledge within your employees. It could be just a mistake of one single employee who is not aware of things about cybersecurity controls that can lead to millions and millions of losses for a company. I'm going to take a minute here and ask everyone a question. How many of us immediately restart our web browsers when we see there is an update available? I'll assume none, but I'm here to tell you that the recent attacks that are happening worldwide, including Oman, is because of the info-stealer malwares. How do they do this? Let me tell you. We open our web browsers, we open Google Chrome, we open Microsoft Edge, which we're doing day to day as part of our work. We see there is an update, but sometimes we're too lazy to restart that tab. What happens? The attacker knows that your browser is vulnerable. This is where they steal your credentials from. One little credential of an employee can let that hacker enter your entire organization. This is exactly what happened in the US in the Colonial Pipeline issue. The hacker compromised one password of one individual. And this is where their operational systems were also about to be compromised, where the CEO of that company had to pay $4 million to the hacker. You can see how a small password complex issue can compromise and result in reputational loss, financial loss, operational loss. Looking at certain statistics, it costs a data breach around the world costs in a loss of $3.8 million. Just in the US, a data breach can result in the loss of $8.5 million. To recover from this, it takes approximately 73 days. To find out if there is a credential leak, it takes companies approximately 207 days. Can you imagine that you wake up one morning and you know that because of your passwords, the company has resulted in this much amount of loss. Can you imagine the governmental impact? Can you imagine the country impact, the organizational impact? We need to take the measures to safeguard our country, to safeguard our environment, to safeguard our personal individual lives. Right. Let's look into what is threat hunting. Now that we saw what happens across the world, what do we do about it? We need to know how we can use these measures. What are the measures that we can use? Threat hunting is one such process of threat intelligence and management where we gather data from different sources, which will include the malicious malwares, the IOCs, the hashes, the domains, the URLs that the attackers have already used to compromise another organization. Let's say it's in another country. But when I know that has already happened, I'm going to take that information and use it against my environment so that that hacker cannot use that particular indicator of compromise to attack me. So what do we do in threat hunting? We refine and we establish a hypothesis. Then we hunt for indicators of compromise. When I say indicators of compromise, it's just what I mentioned about hashes, your malicious domains, your malicious IPs that have already been used for attacks. Our endpoint controls, let's say our firewalls, our proxies, have those data that the hackers are continuously trying to hit the traffic of our organization. So when we know something is malicious, it is a collaborative effort within our cybersecurity team to safeguard our organization. What are you threat hunting for? And what is the difficulty level? As you can see, we start with hash values, which is fairly easier as it goes up towards TTPs. So we have IP addresses, domains, networks, tools, and TTPs. That is tactics and techniques and procedures that the hackers use across worldwide. These are all the information that you can gather to protect your organization. So it requires various steps. Now, what we will think is, when we're not part of cybersecurity, we might think these are a really complex process. What do we do? How do we do this? I'm here to tell you that there is OSINT, which we call open source intelligence. And these are tools and applications that are available widely for free on the surface web, which you can utilize to perform threat intelligence, to perform reconnaissance, to perform threat hunting. So who uses OSINT? There are various technologies, there are various stakeholders that might use and require OSINT. Often you see, this is exactly what hackers are doing, right? They're taking advantage of this information that is available on the web and attacking your environment. So why don't we be proactive and do it before they do that? We need to be ethical and we need to be defensive. We are authorized as part of our cybersecurity teams in our respective organizations to perform this search against threat intelligence using these tools. So what are the sources for OSINT? You can refer to television, you can refer to media, you have your internet, you have your geographic maps, environmental maritime data, observations, and academia. All of this is something, when you perform a simple Google search and you can find details, you would be surprised if you grab your mobile phones now and find credentials related to your respective organization on Google. Sometimes you would also find them leaked on the underground forums. And that is when we're already in danger. What are we going to do if it's all in the underground forum? There could be someone who could buy that and attack you against your organization. So the whole idea here is we do that for our organization and block those malicious indicators of compromise in our security controls. Take measures to take down that information. Work with our country, work with our partners, work with different sources so that we can safeguard our environment. What is the process of OSINT? So what goes into this process? We start by identifying the source. What are we looking for? Where can we find this? We go to Google, we type, what information are you looking for? Am I looking for credentials of my organization that are leaked, let's say in the dark web? Or is it available somewhere malicious and I need to safeguard and inform my management? Data harvesting. This is where you're collecting the relevant data from those identified sources. So now you've identified what applications you're going to use. And then you need to know that what kind of data are you going to collect. Am I going to collect the IP addresses range? Do I see certain open ports that are already of compromise that I need to safeguard my organization and inform the respective company members? Then we have data processing, where we process the data we have gathered into meaningful data. We don't want false positives again. We don't want something that is not relevant to us. We might also find data that might seem that is relevant to our organization, but it's not. It's just to fool us that, let's say, for example, I see something related to my domain, but it will have a few letters that are related to my domain. It actually creates that panic within individuals that this is something I need to do, take it off, communicate, do this. So you need to be really careful when you're analyzing this data. Finally, when it goes to reporting, remember that as part of our organization, we're conducting offensive security. We are trying to get this data, but it does not end there. We are a part of our organization. We are a part of this country. We need to resolve this matter. We need to give it to the defenders in our country, in our respective companies, so that what are we going to do with this? We need to resolve it. That's where the defensive security measures come in. You need to probably raise an incident. You need to inform the respective individual. For example, his credential is leaked, so please change your passwords. Please use complex passwords. Please comply to the company policy. You need to immediately scan their devices against antivirus, for example, or other security controls that your respective company is using. Behind me here, you can see these are actually freely available tools on the surface web that you can utilize for your company ethically to know data as part of threat intelligence, that you can use for your own companies lawfully complying to the laws of your company. You can see several tools here. We often have excuses from individuals in our companies that we cannot spend thousands and millions of different solutions. So why do we wait for the attackers to use these? We can go ahead and use these by ourselves to protect our companies. We know
2 minutes left, Ms. Asma.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we know that we do find data on the surface web. We do find data on the dark web. There is plenty of data on the surface web that is available, open for everyone to see. You don't want your company to result in that reputational loss as well. All of this impacts your company, especially if you're a governmental company, then you are impacting the country. So we need to think for all the individuals, not just for ourselves. I always want you to remember that we as individuals, we are the first line of defense. We cannot rely on different solutions. We cannot rely on different people, blame people, or this happened because of you. It should happen from us. And this is what I want to inculcate with you today, that we need to take responsibility. We have the tools and resources here that we can use and protect and safeguard our environment. Thank you all for your attendance. I hope my presentation was beneficial to you today. We're available at the PGO booth if you would further like to understand our cybersecurity processes. Until then, stay ethical, secure, and defensive. Thank you.